What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast presented by Boo Crew Media. I'm your host, Chris Rosvoglou, and this show is sponsored by Hornitos Tequila. Here's to the shot takers, the ones who, like us, believe nothing great ever happens if you don't take a chance, because that's hashtag a shot worth taking. Hornitos, the proud sponsor of the Straight Up Saints podcast. Guys, if you thought this offseason was going to be just one big conversation about the Saints QB battle and that would just be the main headline, man, do I have something to tell you. That ends up being maybe the third or fourth most important story with the way this offseason's been going, guys. Now, before I get into the whole Michael Thomas saga and give my stance on this thing, guys, just you can leave your comments in. I'll pull them up on the screen as the show keeps going on. But this is really going to be the story of the rest of this Saints offseason, really is kind of going to be this Michael Thomas situation. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to be wondering what's going on with whether, the future of Michael Thomas, if he gets traded, stuff like that. I will answer all that. But first, what I want to do, because I think it's the most fair thing to do in a situation like this, I want to go through all the facts and everything that we know up to this point, August 9th. And then I'll get to is Michael Thomas going to get traded? If he gets traded, when would it happen? I'll give my stance on all that. But first, let's go with what we know. For starters, Michael Thomas gets injured week 1 of last season. We all know what happens. Latavius Murray running play kind of goes into him. Obviously, that is just a complete accident. Crap happens. Shit happens. We all know this. That's basically what happened in that game against the Bucs. Saints were already up double digits. Everyone says it was a garbage time play that Michael Thomas got hurt on, and they're not wrong. So that's what happens. Michael Thomas gets injured week 1. He misses about a month of the season. He's about to come back. And then we find out that he gets suspended for punching a player in practice. That player ended up being C.D. Deuce. And then we realized, okay, he's not the only player that swung at C.D. Deuce last season, but he also talked back to the coaching staff. They suspend him. He continues to miss time. He comes back. We see some games where Michael Thomas plays well, had 200-yard receiving games during that stretch. And then he sits out, tries to get healthy for the playoffs. People say he wanted to spend the playoffs with Drew Brees and potentially win a ring in what was Drew's last season. So obviously respect factor there. But he obviously wasn't the Michael Thomas that we're accustomed to seeing. He didn't even have a catch in the divisional round, and that just brought up more questions about, is he healthy? What's the status of his ankle? Well, obviously not great, because after the playoff game, Adam Schefter reports, well, it's a torn deltoid for Michael Thomas, and he's going to most likely go under the knife this offseason. So a lot of people, including myself, thought, okay, Michael Thomas will have surgery in February or March, and he'll be ready for the regular season. And then all of a sudden the tweets start trickling in from your favorite Saints reporters that, hey, we need to see if Michael Thomas is healthy. And that kind of makes you think, okay, something's up here. Then it comes out that Michael Thomas ended up having surgery not in February, not in March, not in April, not in May, in June. Needs about 8 weeks. So what does that do for you? That means he'll probably miss the first month of the season, which is going to happen. He will miss the first month of the NFL season. And then we get the Jeff Duncan piece, which came out on Saturday. And I'm not here to talk about my opinion of Jeff Duncan because, frankly, I really don't have an opinion of Jeff Duncan. What I know about this piece is this. Jeff Duncan does not just make up shit to make up shit. That's not really how he rolls. And Jeff Duncan, whether you like it or not, guys, does have a pretty good in with the Saints. And I think the way I see it is that Jeff Duncan was relayed information that only Jeff Duncan really can bring out. And the reason I say that is we all love Nick Underhill. Nick Underhill is amazing. Nick isn't in my opinion, at least, the reporter that's going to come out and give you this, Michael Thomas was ghosting the Saints for 3 months story. Nick will break the contract news for Alvin Kamara, which he has done, and break other stories, which are fantastic. And he gives you the great X's and O's. But Jeff Duncan, in the eyes of a lot of Saints fans, which I'm not going to get into or not, is viewed by some people as a villain. So it kind of makes sense for Jeff Duncan to be the guy who does break this story, whether you like it or not. And a lot of people say, well, why would you bring it out now? Well, Jeff Duncan is doing his job. He's being a reporter. He continues to dig and dig to try and find more to the story. And what he found was that for 3 months, Michael Thomas reportedly did not answer the Saints' phone calls, basically ghosted them because either he wasn't happy with what they wanted him to do, which was get surgery, or perhaps there's more to the story, that he was told that it was a different diagnosis. Maybe something happened. But here's what I know. A lot of people are saying, hey, Chris, pick a side. Are you Michael Thomas? Are you Team Saints? Which one is it? Here's the way I look at it. I don't have Michael Thomas' side to the story. So until I get Michael Thomas' side to the story, I'm not going to have an honest opinion on the fact that, hey, I'm Team Michael Thomas or I'm Team New Orleans Saints. Here's what I also can tell you. Regardless of what happens, whether Michael Thomas' relationship with the Saints gets fixed or if Michael Thomas gets traded in a year from now, I will continue to do this podcast. I will continue to root for the New Orleans Saints, and I will continue to cover this team because I love them dearly. But this is an interesting situation because we've had players badmouth the Saints in the past, especially at the wide receiver position. And we've also had players who have been misdiagnosed, like a Delvin Breaux, where, man, you just feel so bad for them because they had such a promising career and one wrong turn from the medical staff, and here you go into this situation. So I think we got to play both cards, and I think it would be extremely unfair if I did not play both cards. But this is what I want to say about this, because I think this is something that Saints fans are kind of undervaluing because they don't want to hear the, hey, look, Michael Thomas could get traded. You guys don't want to hear that. Here's how I see it. When Michael Thomas comes out today and he puts out a picture that says they tried to damage your reputation, you saved theirs by not telling their side of the story, that does not mean this is water under the bridge. This does not mean that Michael Thomas is not at some point going to out the Saints about something, whether it's he didn't like what they had to say about his medical records or he didn't like the way they were handling his recovery process, anything. That's kind of a passive-aggressive shot. I'm not saying he shouldn't take that shot. I'm just telling you, for people to think it's water under the bridge and this is not a big situation, this is a big deal, guys. This is a really, really big deal because this is a player who, when healthy, you guys know how I feel about him. I mean, I have a picture of him. Literally, I can't even point. Which way is it, guys? This way? Yeah, it's this way. I got a picture of Michael Thomas right behind me. So don't think for a second that I'm not all in on Michael Thomas, okay? So when healthy, he's one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the NFL. But there's been a storyline here now for a year. It's been 12 months for this Michael Thomas saga. This is something that has not ended. And it's a little bit frustrating in the fact that it all stems from an injury. Michael Thomas was fine with the New Orleans Saints before this injury. There was no complaints about whether or not he would want out or whether or not he didn't trust the coaching staff or the medical staff or Sean Payton. There were never these concerns. And they all stem from that week 1 injury that probably shouldn't have happened. And Michael Thomas obviously feels that way because Michael Thomas liked a tweet today that said Michael Thomas got hurt during week 1 garbage time when the Saints should have protected their investment. The medical staff cleared him several times during the regular season and agreed to hold off surgery, so Thomas waited to have surgery, and yet he's at fault. That was tweeted by Jordan Schultz of ESPN, and Michael Thomas liked that tweet. So once again, without saying his side to the story, Mike is subtly leaving these hints. And when you do that, I think it's just one step closer to what, in my opinion, I think is inevitable divorce. And for people to tell me that, hey, this situation will get figured out. I don't think Michael Thomas is going to get traded. He's too good. I know he's damn good. I think when healthy, he's arguably the best receiver in football. But I've seen this movie too many times to be naive, guys. Jimmy Graham and Brandon Cooks said a lot less, and they got traded the hell out of here the minute that there was some tension. Jimmy Graham went from what we thought was a guy on track to be a surefire Hall of Famer to, hey, he gets traded to Seattle, and his career has never been the same since getting traded to Seattle. Brandon Cooks says closed mouths don't get fed. Well, you could go to New England, and then you could go to LA, and then you could go to Houston. He just gets traded nonstop. Michael Thomas, granted, better than Jimmy Graham, better than Brandon Cooks, has now had this friction with the Saints for a year, basically a year. September will mark a full year. And I just feel like I would be naive to say that I don't think that this is going to end up in a trade. I think at some point, the Saints are going to do their usual. The player does not mean more than the system. I'm not saying I agree with that, but it just seems like that's kind of been their thing at times. And I can see a Michael Thomas trade happen. Now, when do I think that could happen? Well, I don't think it's going to happen this year at all. Frankly, he's not healthy. His contract is extreme at this moment. For anyone worrying about that, they would have to end up, costing them $22.5 million to get rid of him this year. So that's not going to happen. But the good news is, because I don't think a Michael Thomas trade will happen at all this year, that leaves the window that it does get salvaged. Because a lot of people want to know, well, can this get fixed? If this is going to get fixed, guys, and I'm sure you all agree in this department, it means Michael Thomas has to come back and Michael Thomas has to be Michael Thomas, because winning cures all. Individual success cures a lot. And think about Michael Thomas pre-injury. He was breaking record after record after record, and you didn't hear a damn thing. You didn't hear a damn thing about complaints. So if Michael Thomas comes back and Michael Thomas is Michael Thomas of old, guess what? He'll be a little bit happier, and the Saints will be like, hey, you know what? If he's going to talk and he puts up these numbers, you got to deal with it. Sometimes the success is worth the headache. And for Michael Thomas's stance, he's kind of worth the headache at times. He's that damn good. So that's interesting. Now, for people saying, well, could they trade him? If they do trade him, what would he be worth? I really think that it depends. I think he would need to come back for starters, because right now, his value is the lowest it's been probably since he's entered the league, because you're not going to trade for Michael Thomas, who barely played last year and isn't going to start this season until probably late October. So that hurts his value. But if Michael Thomas comes back and Michael Thomas looks like the Michael Thomas of old, in my opinion, you're getting at least a first, a third, and potentially a player back for him. Why do I say that? Well, Odell Beckham Jr., who I know you guys all love, and obviously between the LSU factor and all that and the flashiness, he is just beloved in Louisiana, and rightfully so. He got traded for a first, a third, and Jabril Peppers after being hurt several times and not having a great year. Like, he was on the decline, per se, of his numbers. Michael Thomas has actually been better than Odell Beckham Jr., believe it or not, and that's why I think he will go for more than that. So for people saying, can he be used in a trade for Aaron Rodgers, or can he be used in a trade for, assuming, and this is a big assumption, but what if Deshaun Watson's allegations get cleared up? Maybe he gets used in that type of trade. I don't know, but I think Michael Thomas at some point is going to be used in a trade. I just feel like we're heading towards that point. If I'm wrong, I will be happily wrong. I absolutely, and as the player, and obviously the charitable work he's done, love what Michael Thomas does. So I would like to see him in New Orleans for the long haul, but it just seems like time and time again, more friction, more rumors, more drama, that leads to trade. That's just how I see it. But I do think it's interesting, and I think the Saints kind of being the hot place for a quarterback. I mean, if you're a quarterback, especially like an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, you want to play with a great coach? Well, you got it. You want to play with a coach who's going to maximize your skill set? Sean Payton does that. He's been great at the quarterback position. So I think Sean Payton with a guy like Rodgers, I could see it working. And if that means you have to get rid of a Michael Thomas, so be it, because there's no more position important than the quarterback position. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens there, but I'm going to leave it at this, guys. I'm not picking a side. I don't know if Michael Thomas is going to get traded. I just think right now we are heading down a very dangerous path. And if this continues, where these two sides keep taking shots at each other, because it's not just one of them. I mean, Sean Payton's taking shots and Michael Thomas is taking shots. That, for me, is a concern, and it's only going to get fixed if 13 comes on the field and starts playing like number 13. Now, before I get into my next topic, I do agree with you guys. Watson, for me, it's a big if. That's something you have to monitor, but that's like next season, honestly. With the way we're going, the season almost started. He's not even ready yet because of his legal situation. But anyway, going back to New Orleans and going back to what has been a hectic Monday, the Michael Thomas news wasn't enough, guys. If that didn't make you want to just have a tequila shot, well, how about this news with Wil Lutz? A core muscle injury that basically is going to put him out for at least 8 weeks. Nick Underhill said the pessimistic timeline is probably 12 weeks. But again, let's just meet in the middle, 8 to 10 weeks. I think that's a fair timeline for Wil Lutz. Make no mistake, this is a huge deal. I know that Wil Lutz, kind of struggled at times last year, and I know the kicking spot is frustrating. And as Saints fans, we're accustomed to frustration from special teams at times, especially from the kicking game. But when Wil Lutz came in since 2016, he's made a whopping 86.6% of his field goal attempts. It's hard to replace that production. And I know that we all think that, hey, kicking spot, that you could kind of fill that out with a veteran. I'm not so sure, because good kickers don't really grow on trees, and mediocre kickers are just highly valued in this league. For example, a guy like the Money Badger from the Los Angeles Chargers, who had a down year, he was a mediocre kicker, gets paid a lot of money from the Chargers. So you have kicking issues for about 99% of the league at this point. I mean, there's 2 to 3 good kickers that you really trust with the game on the line. I'm not saying Wil Lutz is in those 2 to 3, but Wil Lutz is absolutely a top 5 kicker, and not having him for the probably first 2 months of the season is really concerning. And then the other concern is when he comes back, guys, is he ready? Is he okay? Because a core muscle injury is pretty significant. Ian Rappaport even said, that's not the type of injury you want a kicker to have. So I'm pretty concerned at this in terms of, me signing as the kicker. Yeah, look, I can't kick for shit, guys. I'll tell you, there's a couple things I can do. Kicking's not one of them. So that will not be it. But this position for me is very fascinating, because now you have 3 preseason games coming up, and the Saints need to bring in 2 guys, 3 guys, whatever it might be. I'm assuming 2 would probably be the magic number here, and let them go at it. And whoever wins in the preseason, because that's really where you're going to get the live reps and see the most out of your kicking situation, will win the job. So that is yet another factor, another job opportunity for the Saints. I mean, the Saints are basically like Indeed at this point. They have so many job listings because we lost a bunch of guys, and this is kind of what happened. So the preseason is going to be very fascinating. I'm going to talk about the preseason in just a little bit. But before I do that, I kind of want to bring up something about the Wil Lutz injury that has, I'm not going to say it got swept under the rug, but I think a lot of people kind of missed it. But in Wil Lutz's statement, he talked about the medical staff being excellent and making it clear that he was in communication with the team about getting surgery and when he got the surgery and how they're going to figure that out. And that just tells me one thing. You cannot look at that statement and say that's not shade at Michael Thomas. And I'm not here to be starting rumors and instigating like TMZ over here, but when you have the news that Michael Thomas potentially goes to the team, and then you have Wil Lutz say that he was communicating with the team on how to handle his injury, How do you not read that as shade? I mean, they kind of go hand in hand. That's the way I see it. So I found that really fascinating. If you haven't looked at it, I'd strongly advise to go to Wil Lutz's Twitter page, go look at his statement about his injury, and then you come back to me and say, hey, Chris, I don't think it was shade, or Chris, I think it was a shade. I thought it was. I thought it was a little bit of a jab. I'm not saying he should have taken it. I just found that very, 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 very fascinating for sure. Now, before I get into the preseason opener and things to watch, because man, there are a lot of things to watch in this preseason opener, and it's going to be exciting for the first time actually having preseason games that really do mean something for the Saints, because they have a lot of questions that need to be answered. I want to talk about the Saints' outlook. A lot of people were panicking today. I was just doing my usual bullshit where I tweet out memes and I'm having fun with it, because I've reached that point in my Saints fandom career where I'm really not that stressed, or I'm not that worried, because nothing will hurt me more than the no call. So since then, I'm kind of immune to these issues that go on, but a lot of people are stressing out about what the Saints record might be, what they might look like. And this is my best advice for you guys, for other Saints fans. And you don't have to take my advice, but if you want to listen to it, go ahead. Go into this season with a clear mind. Go into this season with no expectations. And if the Saints don't meet whatever your initial expectations were, and if the Saints just don't perform that well, guess what? If you don't set the bar too high, you're not going to get let down very hard. On the contrary, if the Saints overachieve whatever thoughts you might have had in your head, you know how fun this season would be? You know how fun it would be to watch Jameis Winston airing it out and this Saints offense just being pretty damn good? That would be really fun. And the way I look at it is, if you take the last 4 seasons, guys, and look at what the Saints have been able to accomplish compared to what we expected, the 2017 season, in my opinion, was the most fun out of all of them, because it came out of nowhere. It was an 0-2 team that started getting hot, and then you said, oh, crap, look at this. This might be a Super Bowl contender. And it was one of the more fun seasons I've had watching this as a Saints fan and both as a podcaster. And then after that season, what happened? We were all Super Bowl or bust, Super Bowl or bust. And it kind of felt like if your team didn't lift the Lombardi trophy all 16 weeks prior to that, it kind of meant nothing. It kind of felt kind of empty. And while I totally appreciate the Super Bowl or bust expectations, and I absolutely loved the last 4 seasons and had so much fun watching and covering, it definitely changes when you go in with a clear mind and not a lot of expectations. You're able to kind of handle whatever outcome, whether it's a win, whether it's a loss, you kind of handle it better. So I would go into this season knowing that the Saints have a lot of talent on their roster, but they also have a lot of question marks. And with that comes a lot of uncertainty. And when you have a lot of uncertainty, I think the best thing to do is not set a high bar. And if they end up overachieving and making the playoffs, let's go. Who the hell knows once you make the playoffs? I mean, it would be totally Saints in a year where everyone's panicking to somehow be a playoff team and make a nice little run. It would not surprise me. And on the flip side, if the Saints don't make the playoffs, that wouldn't shock me either. Now, one thing I want to address before I get into the preseason and kind of questions that you guys are dropping in the chat, because I'll answer whatever questions you guys have for me on the live stream. Everyone's saying that this team is going to tank. Man, like, you have not been paying attention to the New Orleans Saints for the last decade, because the Saints in 2012, without Sean Payton, without a defense, and starting the season 0-4, still finished 7-9. And that was literally one of the worst defenses I've ever witnessed in my life, with no coaching staff. I mean, Joe Vitt was the interim coach, and even he was suspended. So I think it was like Aaron Kramer or something who was the head coach for the first 4 games. So the Saints, without a coach and without a defense, won 7 games. This Saints team, with Sean Payton, with a better defense, with an Alvin Kamara, if you don't say that they can't go at least 8-9, I don't think you've been paying attention to the Saints, because I think that's kind of where this ballpark is right now. Kind of an 8-9, 9-8 team that if they overachieve, guess what? It's a 10-7, 11-6 team. And guess what? 10-7, 11-6, that gets you in the playoffs. So again, go into this year with not much, not very high expectations, and you might just have your mind blown, and you might just be really happy about the outcome. So that would be my advice. Now let's get into some real quick comments, and then I'll get into the preseason. And of course, guys, if you're listening right now and you want to drop any questions, any concerns, put them in. I'll put them up on the screen, and we'll talk about it here on the Straight Up Saints podcast. Now, the first one, do you think the defense is going to be able to step up, or do you feel like age is going to catch up to them? Well, it's kind of a trick question for me. I don't think the age is really the issue for the Saints for me. I think the defense and the real question mark is the cornerback 2 spot, which I actually am going to address in my things to watch in preseason slide that you'll see at the bottom of the screen right there, because the cornerback 2 spot is very interesting. And what happens with your linebacker play? I think the one thing I really like about this Saints defense, though, is they have a lot of options at pass rush. And guess what? The pass rush really disguises so many problems for defense. You can have a secondary that's not great, but guess what? If the quarterback doesn't have much time to throw, he doesn't have much time to expose your biggest flaw, which would be the cornerback 2 spot. So I think the Saints actually on defense, I'm not that concerned about them because I think we have depth at linebacker, something that we're not accustomed to seeing, whether it's Dow or Werner or Quan Alexander or Demario Davis. I mean, and even Zach Bond, this is a team that actually has 4 to 5 linebackers that maybe they can use week 1. That's something we haven't seen in a long time. And how about the defensive line? Payton Turner, Marcus Davenport, Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, Tano Pascal, and you're talking about even Noah Spence, maybe 6 defensive linemen that can get after the quarterback. When have the Saints ever had that? So I find that super, super fascinating. I think this defense, the issue that would get to them is either 1, injury, or 2, the cornerback 2 spot just being so bad, like 2012 bad, that they can't get over that. But other than that, I'm not overly concerned about the defense. I'm cautiously optimistic, actually, about the defense and where they might be. As for Sean Payton getting Coach of the Year, I'll tell you what, if the Saints make the playoffs, Sean Payton better get Coach of the Year, and I know he won't. So I don't even know why I'm even addressing it, but again, the man should have had a Coach of the Year at some point over the last 4 years and didn't get it. Well, how do I feel about CJ Henderson from Jacksonville? All right, I'll do this last one, then I'll jump into preseason tips, and you guys can leave more questions in the chat. CJ Henderson, for me, I think this is just a total Urban Meyer move, the fact that he's already available on the trade block after 1 season with Jacksonville. Now, does that mean he's going to get traded? No, but this is a player that I would be watching. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. A lot of people are talking about it, and I'm not saying it's going to happen because, again, Michael Thomas is injured. But in a hypothetical world, I would probably trade Michael Thomas for DJ Chark and CJ Henderson. Now, that would not happen, and that's not going to happen, so don't take that as some type of report. That is merely speculation and me saying what I would be okay with. But I do find it fascinating that CJ Henderson's already up there, and I really am intrigued by the idea of putting him in a secondary that has a Marshawn Lattimore, has a CD Deuce, has a Malcolm Jenkins, and has a Marcus Williams. I think he would be an excellent fit, and that would give you yet another option at outside corner. But I do not blame the Saints if they say, hey, we already have a Paulson Adebo invested in their secondary for young talent. I don't know if I want to get CJ Henderson. So I don't blame them whichever the way they go, but I do think it is fascinating that the young corner is already potentially on the trade block. Now, again, I said one more, but I'll throw this in possibilities. Xavier Howard's as a Saint. I'm going to go with a whopping 0, especially after restructuring his deal with the Dolphins. I don't think he goes anywhere, but it was a nice little fun storyline for us to talk about for about a month, but it's gone now. He's out of the possibility here for the cornerback 2 spot. Now the preseason, guys. This has been a stressful Monday, whether it's the Michael Thomas tweet or the Wil Lutz injury. But, man, we got football coming back this Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Saints versus the Baltimore Ravens. And usually preseason wouldn't matter because, hey, Drew Brees is your starter and you know what's going to happen. Well, not anymore because you have a quarterback battle. You have uncertainty at the wide receiver position, uncertainty at the cornerback position. So let's go through some storylines to follow for the preseason opener. And the first one, let's just go with the no-brainer here. Jameis Winston versus Taysom Hill. This is as real as it gets for deciding this quarterback job. Whoever plays well, or better, I should say, in the preseason games, most likely will win the job. I think it's kind of that clear at this point because the quarterback battle in camp, it's kind of been back and forth. One day Taysom has a good day. The next day Jameis has a good day. Well, now Jameis Winston's kind of had back-to-back pretty solid performances. He played really well in practice on Monday, and he apparently lit it up in the red zone, which is really encouraging news because that's something where I want to see the Saints get better at. So that's really nice to hear. If he performs well on Saturday, this is yet another stepping stone for Jameis Winston, another chance for him to, again, get on that path to revitalizing his career. So I am really, really interested in this preseason opener for Jameis, and I would not be surprised if Taysom actually is the starter for the first preseason game, but Jameis does enough in this one that he's the starter for the following 2. I'm leaning Jameis in this debate. Now, I know we have to see them play in the preseason first, but I think this is a really good chance for Jameis Winston here, if he's going to win the starting job, to kind of just grab it and take the lead now, because it's kind of felt 50-50, but if Jameis can play better than Taysom and maybe he leans it in that 55-45 swing, okay, here we go. Now Jameis is starting to have some momentum. So that is absolutely a starting, a storyline to follow. Who's going to win the starting quarterback job? And I think a big factor of that is taking care of the football. If either one of them has a turnover in this game, I think it's going to look really deflating for their chances. And that's not going to just knock them out of the quarterback competition. But obviously, if we go into this and Jameis has a pick and Taysom doesn't, or Taysom has a fumble and Jameis is clean with the football, obviously that's going to swing in the other quarterback's favor. So I think that's a storyline that you guys want to watch for sure. How about Paulson Adebo? I kind of hinted at it before, but The kid is coming along strong, actually. It looks like he's getting better and better each week in practice, and that's something that the Saints have to be really encouraged with. We know that the ball skills are there. We know that he has the talent, and this is a player who, if he did play in the college football season in 2020, hey, maybe he's a second-round pick. Maybe he's a first-round pick. He's that talented. So if he continues to ascend, and this is going to be his first taste of NFL opposing wide receivers, not Saints wide receivers every day, this is a really good opportunity for Paulson Adebo to possibly win the cornerback 2 job and show that he can actually handle his own. And I've said this multiple times on Twitter. If Paulson Adebo ends up being your cornerback 2, it changes the whole defense, because now the main concern is not as much of a concern anymore. And I think for Paulson, this is a great opportunity. Preseason, I know you're kind of playing against vanilla schemes, and they're not going to give you the whole offense and the whole menu in terms of the playbook. But man, if you can play well against the preseason and play well in man situations, I think this is going to be very, 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 very interesting to see what happens there. So I think this is going to be a storyline to watch. How does Paulson Adebo perform in the preseason opener? Very intrigued there. How about the wide receiver group? That's another group to follow. Marquez Callaway and Deontay Harris have kind of been labeled your training camp darlings. Maybe I'll use the word there, and they've kind of broke out. It kind of seems like it's the Marquez Callaway breakout season on the rise here. And Deontay Harris, granted, he could face a potential suspension. He is someone who I've said multiple times on this platform, I think he is going to make a lot of big plays at the wide receiver position this upcoming season. So these are 2 players that I want to watch in the preseason. And if they perform well there, well, guess what? That means they have a great shot to possibly end up having the breakout seasons that we know that they're capable of having and where they're going to need. Because if Deontay can play well and Marquez Callaway plays well, that's going to help your offense out big time, especially when we're kind of looking at this offense and saying it's Alvin Kamara, it's Adam Troutman, and who else? Because you have to wait for Michael Thomas to come back. If Callaway and Harris play better, that's really going to help out the passing attack. So I want to see what happens there. I alluded at it before, guys. Another storyline to watch is the defensive line, and I can't stress that enough. The defensive line has all the talent and all the depth that you need, and it's something that we're not accustomed to seeing. But the fact that they can go 5 deep, if Cam Jordan looks a little bit rejuvenated, that would be great. If Marcus Davenport seems to be on the mend, that would be excellent. And how about Payton Turner? He continues to take steps in the right direction. If he can kind of take that ascension to being a legitimate threat at that pass rushing spot, then man, the Saints might have something there in their first-round pick, and that would really go a long way for this defense to have another pass rusher who can get after the Tom Brady's, the Matt Ryans, the Sam Darnolds of the world, because you will be facing them a total of 6 times this upcoming season. And the last pointer for this preseason game, I don't think it's going to shock you guys because I've tweeted about it a couple times, but I'll bring it up again anyway. Ian Book. If Ian Book shows you some flashes, that's all you can ask for in the preseason. You want your rookie quarterback to have these moments where he extends the plays with his legs, where he makes the right decision, where he basically just runs the offense fluidly. And if he can do that, that is a step in the right direction. And I know when the Saints drafted Ian Book, I sat here and I said, I'm kind of confused by the pick. And then the following episode, I came out and said, hey, I don't blame the Saints for taking a chance because, hey, a guy like Dak Prescott was in the 4th round. It's somewhere in between the middle if you can find it. If you can find that backup quarterback who is just a consistent veteran for years to come, that would be a great value out of a 4th-round pick in Ian Book. So I'm watching Ian Book to see if he can do the little things, if he can extend the plays with his legs, if he can keep the chains moving, if he can make the right throws, if he can execute on the shot play when it does get called up for him, because that's something that he really didn't specialize at Notre Dame. But if he can do that, that would be great. And kind of seeing how he handles the NFL pressure, how he can go up against an NFL D-line and make the right plays. So I'm very interested to see how Ian Book plays. I know that is kind of a boring storyline compared to other ones, but you never know. The NFL is crazy. And I've seen Sean Payton take a Taysom Hill from BYU, who people didn't think was going to have any spot in this league, and suddenly he's competing for a starting quarterback job. And that doesn't mean that Ian Book is just all of a sudden going to compete for a starting quarterback job. What I'm trying to get at is that Sean Payton can develop the quarterback position extremely well. So if Ian Book shows some flashes, that gives you promise into next season. And who the hell knows? I mean, the NFL is unpredictable. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens with Ian Book. And I'm excited. I know he's going to be going up against your base coverages, and there's not going to be so much to see that you say, all right, Ian Book is the future. But if he can make some plays here and there, I think that would absolutely go a long way for this New Orleans Saints team. So you're looking for Paulson Adebo, you're looking for Ian Book, you're looking for this D-line, you're looking for the wide receiver, and you're looking for the quarterback battle between Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. So the preseason opener this Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, Baltimore Ravens, New Orleans Saints, should be a fun one for sure. And again, It's the preseason. Don't want to overreact completely, but it's going to be worth watching, and it's going to have a big, big impact on this team and kind of how they look moving forward, especially at the quarterback spot. So I am very, very, very intrigued to see what happens. And you guys said you hope we get some accuracy. Well, I agree with you, man. I can't stress that enough. In the Saints offense, you need to do one thing really well. You need to get completions. I know it sounds so basic, but you got to move the chains. And we saw it with Bridgewater. We kind of saw it with Taysom in the 4 games. I think Jameis can do the same if he does win the quarterback job, and that's going to be really interesting to see. If you guys have any more questions, drop them in. I'll answer them, and if not, I'll end up doing it for this edition of the Straight Up Saints, but I'll give you about another minute or two to drop your questions, concerns if you have it. If not, I will bounce. But, man, this was a hell of a Monday. When I woke up, and I kind of woke up kind of late for my standards, about 8:45, I was like, holy crap. I just saw that Michael Thomas tweet, and I said, here we go. This is going to be one of those Mondays where the timeline is just going to be in utter disarray. And that's kind of why, if anyone saw on Twitter, I put the Mean Girls video out of what the hell's her name? Regina George, just sitting in the middle while everything's in chaos, because that's how Saints Twitter came in. It's like the gif of seeing the guy walk in with the pizza boxes and the room's on fire. That's kind of how I felt going on Twitter. I mean, it was absolutely, for lack of a better word, a shit show. And yeah, this is the reason why Garfield hates Mondays. I mean, I don't blame Garfield. Mondays are crappy to begin with, and you go on Monday and you find out that Michael Thomas and the Saints are again beefing, and you say, okay, I'm ready for Tuesday. So I'm absolutely interested to see what happens. Joining late on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that MT isn't a Saint by the trade deadline? I'm willing to eat my own words here. I do not think Michael Thomas will get traded this year. I just don't see it. I just think there's too much money involved. And I know the Saints have shown in the past that they are not always going to let money dictate the moves. Like, if they have to eat dead cap to get rid of a player who they think is causing issues, they'll do it. But this in particular, why get rid of him now when he's not healthy, when you can wait a little bit, get his value up, and then move him out? So I think for the Saints and Michael Thomas, if you ask me next offseason he's going to be here, I'm pretty confident that he won't be. But if you're asking me if he's going to be here by the deadline, I'm very confident that Michael Thomas will still be on the Saints. And again, it's all based on how he plays. If he performs really well this season, well, guess what? The Saints and Michael Thomas are going to have to spend the offseason kind of having marriage counseling and figuring this thing out, because if it's too good, you got to make it work. If the highs are better than the lows, you got to stick around and see what happens. But it's going to be really interesting to see. Ready to see guys like Ty Montgomery and Devontae Freeman in the preseason? Abso-freaking-lutely. I mean, even guys who are not the headliners, I'm very intrigued to see what they do, because these are players who can play roles in the beginning of the season. Devontae Freeman could actually have a decent role for the whole year. Ty Montgomery, you're talking about the receiving game, needing more weapons. Well, here's your opportunity to come in and kind of find your role in this Saints offense. So I'm very intrigued to see what happens there for Ty Montgomery and Devontae Freeman for sure. Ball protection and efficiency will determine who wins the quarterback battle. I think absolutely. And I'll throw one more caveat on there. Who can make more plays downfield? I think that matters a lot. And I think that we've seen Taysom Hill underthrow a lot of deep balls. And I know the one thing Jameis Winston does really well is he airs that fucking ball out like there's no tomorrow. So I think that Jameis Winston kind of has that edge there in that department. I would say ball protection, kind of a split. Taysom fumbles a lot. Jameis fumbles and throws a lot of picks. I really don't know who I want to give the edge to there. It's just not great. And then efficiency, I would actually say Taysom's actually a little bit more efficient in terms of accuracy and just the advanced metrics. But I think it's going to be very, very fascinating to see what happens there. Lack getting picks at the beginning of the season will definitely help those early games. Yeah, look, I said it on a previous podcast. I think we're heading towards a Marshawn Lattimore breakout season. And I know it sounds crazy to say breakout season for a player who was a defensive rookie of the year and has been a Pro Bowler. But I just think Lattimore's, the time is now, a contract year. You want to get paid a lot. They're depending on you. So I think Lattimore is going to ball out for sure. Do you see Marcus Williams making big plays and getting respect back after the Minneapolis incident? I'll end it on this one because that's a fascinating one. I don't know if Marcus Williams will ever get the full respect that he deserves, but man, he's a really good player. And now he's in a contract year now too, because he's playing on the franchise tag. I would not be shocked if Marcus Williams has 5 to 6 interceptions this year and just plays out of his freaking mind, which he kind of did last year. So I'm all in Marcus Williams. I'm all in on Marshawn Lattimore. If those two play really well, the Saints defense will be just fine this upcoming season. But that's going to do it, guys, for this edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast presented by Hornitos Tequila. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's a really hectic Monday, a lot to kind of digest. But again, if you have any more questions not pertaining to this podcast, if something happens in the future, tweet at me, DM me. You guys know I'll respond, and we'll talk some Saints football there. But I appreciate you guys tuning in for the live stream, and we'll be back for another Straight Up Saints podcast either later this week with some breaking news or next week. I pray that the next podcast is just a recap of the preseason opener, but knowing this team, something crazy will probably happen. So I'll be back when that ever does happen. So again, thank you guys for tuning in, and tune in for more content in the future on the Straight